Welcome to one of the very few cars in South Africa that can go toe-to-toe with the Toyota Hilux in terms of sales. Well, kind of toe-to-toe. In fact, in January of 2025, the Suzuki Swift outperformed both the Toyota Hilux and the VW Polo Vivo in terms of sales. Which is not hard to imagine because the pricing of this is just spot on, in a segment that's currently ballooning exponentially on price. The Swift is basically the hatchback version of the Suzuki Desire, but for those who want something a little sleeker and less on the commercial side of things, given that most Desires are used as Ubers. Today, we have ourselves the top-spec GLX model, and this one is in a super rare sizzling red and black pearl two-tone paint finish. So if you go on YouTube, for instance, and run a search for the Suzuki Swift review, you're probably going to struggle finding this two-tone specification because there aren't a lot out there. So well done Suzuki South Africa for speccing this. In this video, you can expect me to tell you everything you need to know about its practicality, its features. I'm going to drive it on one of the most beautiful back roads just outside of Johannesburg, but I will also drive it in the city and on the freeway and pretty much everywhere else in between. And then I'll tell you how much this will cost you to run on a monthly basis. We have plenty to discuss, so let's get straight into it. Car Talks. Power, precision, performance. The latest generation of the Suzuki Swift gets a smaller engine than the model it replaces because this one is powered by a 1.2-liter naturally aspirated 3-cylinder petrol engine, the Z12E, which replaces the K14B engine found in the predecessor Swift, and that one was a 4-cylinder engine. After the passage of some time, the K14B would later hand over the baton to the K15B, which is the 1.5-liter engine now found in the Suzuki Fronx and pretty much everything else in the Suzuki lineup, but somehow didn't make its way into the Suzuki Swift for some odd reason. The new engine in the Swift makes 60 kilowatts and 112 newton meters of torque, and it sends that power to the front wheels only via a good old 5-speed manual gearbox. The power figures are very minuscule on paper, but the vehicle only weighs about 900 kilos, so it's plentiful. And I love the engine note you get when you rev it out. It almost reminds me of a 6-cylinder engine because 3 is half of 6, although it's less refined than a 6-cylinder engine, of course. Before we get to practicality and features, I've picked up a misconception in the market about the Swift being an A-segment vehicle based on its cute looks. But this is in fact a B-segment vehicle when looking at its size and specification. For instance, the B-segment, or super minis as they often refer to in Europe, typically range from 3.7 to 4.2 meters in length. So with the Swift measuring 3.9 meters in length places it squarely within the B-segment, although on the smaller side of it. So this actually competes alongside its older sibling, the Baleno, as well as the VW Polo Vivo, to name a few. And for reference, the A segment has a slightly smaller type of car, so it would typically include vehicles such as the Suzuki Espresso, Kia Picanto, and the Renault Kwid, to name a few. Moving on to practicality and features, you get 265 liters worth of boot capacity. Comparatively, the VW Polo Vivo gets 280 liters, while the larger Suzuki Baleno gets 314 liters. Nevertheless, the rear seats fold in a 60/40 configuration. You get a space-saver spare wheel under the boot floor, and the tailgate is manually operated. Stepping into the rear cabin, you get a black cloth bench without a center armrest, which you do get in the Suzuki Desire. Nonetheless, you get ISOFIX anchor points for your child seat, 6 airbags, and a 3-star Euro NCAP rating, which means that Desire is safer because it gets 5 stars. Additionally, there are no USB ports in the rear nor air vents. In fact, there's only one USB port up front, which is a Type A, and a 12-volt socket for the entire car to share. Which means the Suzuki Desire is a much better option for rear occupants, not to sound like a broken record. But you'll be happy to know that I have plenty of knee room sitting behind my driving position. And for reference, I am 1.78 meters tall or 5'10". The bonus, you get power windows in the rear that open all the way down. And that takes us to the front cabin. You get keyless entry in the GLX, push to start technology, and a set of mats with Swift embroidery free of charge. By contrast, these are an 800 Rand optional extra in the VW Polo Vivo. Which reminds me that VW have released their results a few days ago and profits have decreased by a resounding 50% compared to the preceding year. And my take is, that's what happens when you take your customers for a ride when it comes to your pricing strategy. Moving swiftly along, see what I did there? Swiftly. You get manually adjustable cloth seats, decently sized door bins, a cubbyhole, and a small storage compartment in between the front seats. And to avoid any doubt, there's no armrest as well. You do, however, get 2 slots for your cups up front, and I think it's also worth mentioning that the central locking system doesn't automatically lock when you drive off. In fact, my wife kept reminding me to lock the doors because it's something that doesn't even cross my mind. Which made me realize that the lived experience of men and women is vastly different in South Africa in terms of crime. You get a 9-inch infotainment system that comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now, the 9-inch screen fills up the space a bit better than the 7-inch display in the GL model, but still, those bezels around the screen are noticeably big in the GLX as well. I also didn't do an in-depth review of the infotainment system in the Suzuki Fronx and the Desire, and that's because functionality is really limited across the board, and the Swift is no exception, but I'll show you anyway. So, for instance, when you see a button for vehicle settings in any car, one would expect to find, I don't know, perhaps vehicle-related settings, or at the very least vehicle status, such as engine oil level, service history, upcoming services, exterior light settings, something along those lines. But something. Not in the Suzuki though, because it just has alerts and notifications. So vehicle settings are just for vibes. And then when you toggle through the tabs, you'll notice that you've got connectivity settings for your Bluetooth devices, you've got sound settings for your bass and treble, for instance, and then you can also toggle through and change things like the date and the time, and yeah, that's about it really. I wish I had more for you, but unfortunately not. On the bright side, this does have automatic aircon with physical dials. You get a multifunction, flat bottom, leather-wrapped steering wheel that's identical to the one you get in the more expensive Suzuki Fronx, and it does feel good to the touch. This also gets cruise control, as well as some good old analog dials in front of you. Overall, this is still a budget car at the end of the day, so the interior is plasticky. But it's been well thought out, and everything is within the driver's reach. By the way, if you want to hear how the 6-speaker sound system is like, then head over to my YouTube shorts. Before we get to driving dynamics, if you're enjoying these videos, then please go ahead and smash the subscribe button to become a part of the family. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you don't miss a single one of our epic reviews. Those who've driven this and the previous generation Swift back-to-back with a 4-cylinder engine say that the previous gen drives slightly better than this one. Now, I haven't driven that one, so I can't say for sure, but this in isolation is competent enough to me. I love the short throws of the manual gearbox, and I think Suzuki's right up there with the VW group when it comes to manual transmissions. It's honestly fun to shift. You can drive the Swift on the freeway without worrying too much about power, and although it delivers peak torque at a very high 4,400 RPM, as long as you're in the right gear, it'll hold 120 km per hour quite comfortably. But the shape of the windscreen is somewhat upright, so you might notice some wind noise at those speeds. I will say that city driving is where I think this vehicle really shines because it's compact, it's got a tight turning circle, and so it's super maneuverable and easy to park in a shopping center and those sort of places. So I would say this is an ideal starting point for first-time buyers. Out on the back roads, the suspension is composed without feeling too firm, and that's thanks in part to those 15-inch alloys with a thick sidewall. The steering is noticeably sportier than the Desire and encourages you to drive enthusiastically, which would explain the higher consumption in the Swift, despite having the same engine as the Desire and similar weight. I think overall I've been pleasantly surprised by the steering of all of the recent Suzukis we've had on test on the channel, because our first ever Suzuki test car was the Jimny, and that steering was hardly direct. So Suzuki claims 4.4 liters per 100 kilometers on the combined cycle, and I saw numbers as high as 6.8 liters during the week I had the vehicle. But that one is completely on me. I was thoroughly enjoying this car, probably more than I should have. For reference, I was averaging 5.7 liters to the 100 in the Suzuki Desire, so that is more realistic. The Swift gets a 5-year 150,000 kilometer warranty and a 4-year 60,000 kilometer service plan. You also get a choice of 10 exterior paint colors to choose from, and that is just unheard of for a budget car. Other highlight features include beautiful LED headlights with daytime running lights, a reversing camera, and rear park distance control. Moving on to pricing and cost of ownership, you can essentially get into the Swift from a low 228,000 rands when you get the entry-level GL, which only comes as a manual. And to be honest, I wouldn't recommend it because it's not well equipped. You're not even getting an infotainment system, so I'd go for the mid-spec GL Plus, which starts from 250,000 rands because you're getting 90% of the features from the GLX. Both the GL Plus and the GLX are available with either a manual or a CVT transmission, which comes at a cost of 20,000 rands on both trim levels, and I would choose the manual in a heartbeat. The top spec GLX is priced from 276,000 rands, which is what we're driving, and on finance, it'll cost you 5,200 rands a month over 6 years at the current prime interest rate of 10.25% per annum. Insurance is risk profile dependent, and the cheapest quote I got was 1,400 rands. A full tank of petrol will cost you 750 rands at the current inland price of 95 octane for the 37-liter fuel tank, which would then bring your total cost of ownership to 7,400 rands. I'm honestly impressed with the Swift, and it's the one I've enjoyed the most out of all of the Suzukis we've had on the channel thus far. To watch all of our Suzuki reviews, I'll leave the various links in the description box below. There are tangible things I can nitpick about the Swift, like the fact that I don't really like the new bonnet design, but ultimately I wouldn't mind buying one as a camera vehicle for the channel. Because for the price of a top-spec Swift, you're getting a base VW Polo Vivo without mats. But do let me know in the comments, if given 300,000 rands, are you getting the Swift, the Franx, or the Desire? Or perhaps something outside of Suzuki? Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.